What's up, everybody? Welcome back to History on Repeat, the place where we talk about people and moments who shaped the world and now the ones we wish we hadn't, which is why today I've decided to start a new series on the channel called Infamous Individuals. Like my series Incredible Individuals that covers amazing people throughout history, this one will cover people who are famous for all of the wrong reasons. And with that said, today we're digging into the life of Hermann Göring, a guy who went from decorated World War I fighter ace to one of the most powerful and destructive figures in Nazi Germany. And just to set the tone right away, this is not a hype piece. This is a breakdown of a man who was obsessed with power, attention, and ideology that helped steer an entire nation toward catastrophe. But first, yeah, believe it or not, I got a sponsor. Someone actually wants me, of all people, to talk about their products. Crazy, right? So today I'm talking about W. And you might be asking, are you talking about that American-based company that pops up on our socials all the time asking creators to help collab with them? The one that everyone thinks is a scam that actually isn't a scam and actually supplies energy-deprived individuals with a plethora of options to get fucking jacked? Yeah, those guys. Why? Because they're the first to ask me, and beggars can't be choosers. So if you're one of those people that are saying to yourself right now, boy, I feel like I'm ready to have a heart attack while playing my 253rd character in the 17th reiteration of Skyrim, then go check out W. And if you like what you see, you can get 10% off using my promo code HistoryOnRepeat. Ain't that nice? In all reality though, I did research into the company, and even though it's not technically a sponsorship because I'm not getting paid directly by them, I thought, let's try it out and see what happens. Besides, it's kind of cool saying that I got a sponsor. So check them out, or don't, or do whatever you like. But now, let's get back into the reason why you're all here.
It's History on Repeat.
Hell yeah.
Göring came into the world in 1893, already plugged into privilege. His family was wealthy, politically connected, and very proud of their military background. I will add here it's speculated his mother was having an affair with a wealthy landowner, because otherwise that lavish lifestyle wouldn't probably have happened. Anyways.
Whore. Not whore.
He bounced around from boarding schools, spent time with aristocratic friends of the family, and developed this early obsession with uniforms, rank, and being the center of attention. By the time he was a teenager, you could already see the pattern. He loved authority, he loved structure, and he loved being admired. So it's no surprise that in 1912 he joined the Cadet Corps and then the Army as soon as he could. When World War I broke out, Göring started as an infantry officer, but he got knocked out of action early by illness. After recovering, he transferred to the new flashy world of aviation. And that's where he actually excelled. He trained hard, learned fast, and turned himself into a legit fighter pilot. He flew reconnaissance missions first, then moved into combat and slowly built up a reputation as a skilled and aggressive flyer. By the end of the war, he had scored over 20 confirmed kills and climbed through the ranks quickly. When the Red Baron was killed in 1918, Göring, with all the swagger in the world, was chosen to take over his famous fighter wing, the Flying Circus. But the war ended soon after, the empire collapsed, and suddenly this guy who'd been thriving off adrenaline, command, and fame had nowhere to channel any of that energy. The stage lights literally went off overnight.
Where are you going? Where are you going? Wait! Oh, wait!
After the war, Göring tried everything to keep himself in the spotlight. He worked stunt shows, worked for airlines, and lived the high life on whatever money he could get. And to add to his list of being a shit person, he decided to become a homewrecker as well around this time. He married Karin von Kansau, a Swedish aristocrat, forcing her to divorce her husband primarily because she had money, which plugged him into an even richer social world. With this newfound wealth, he drifted into politics, and in the early 1920s, he met Adolf Hitler. And he had the things Göring loved: uniforms, attention, strong leaders, national pride. He fit perfectly in Hitler's rising movement. So in 1922, Göring joined the Nazi Party and immediately climbed high in the ranks thanks to his charisma and war hero status. But it didn't come without a cost. During the 1923 Beer Hall Putsch, Göring was shot and seriously wounded, because at least at that time, the current German government wasn't taking any of Hitler's shit.
Hey! Hey! Hey, get the fuck out of here!
When the coup collapsed, Göring fled Germany, because with Hitler being locked up, he didn't really have an option. He was a famous war hero wanted by authorities, now on the run. He settled in Austria and started taking morphine for his leg pain, because getting shot tends to hurt. But once again, adding to his list of being a piece of shit person, he became addicted to the pain meds and literally made everyone around him miserable for it, including his wife, who was now a bit sickly herself. Regardless, they finally went back to Germany in the late 1920s after Göring's charges were dropped, which they also did with Hitler, and this is when the Nazis began gaining real political traction. And fortunately for Karen, she didn't have to see it, because one day she just collapsed and never got up again. And even though this is sad, I'm sure she would prefer this over seeing the monster her husband was about to become. Once Hitler took power in 1933, Göring skyrocketed. Hitler handed him the title after title, and Göring grabbed every one of them with both hands. He became the minister-president of Prussia, which gave him control of the largest police force in the country, and he used it to crush political opponents, arrest communists, and intimidate anyone who wasn't on board with the new regime. Hence, why the Night of the Long Knives was a success, which if you haven't heard of this event, long story short, the night the Nazi Party basically eliminated every last political opponent they had. Yeah, add it to the list. Along with his next achievement, he founded the Gestapo and oversaw the creation of the first concentration camps, originally meant to imprison political enemies, or at least the ones that they hadn't already shot. He later handed the Gestapo off to Himmler, but by then the machine of repression was well-oiled and running, on its own momentum. Göring also built the Luftwaffe from scratch, secretly at first, then openly once the Nazis broke the Treaty of Versailles by invading Poland. And he didn't stop there. Hitler put him in charge of the German economy under what was called the 4-year plan, basically making him the guy who decided how the country would prepare for war. While all of this was happening, Göring built his own palace, Karen Hall, named after his deceased wife. What a guy. Anyways, this is where he located stolen art, animals, fancy uniforms, and anything else that fed his ego. He treated himself like royalty, even when the country was still recovering from economic disaster.
Worship me!
At the start of World War II, Göring's Luftwaffe looked unstoppable. The Air Force helped crush Poland, sweep through Western Europe, and support Germany's early victories. Göring bragged constantly about its strength, and honestly, early on he wasn't wrong. But then came the Battle of Britain. Göring promised Hitler the RAF would be destroyed in weeks. Instead, the Luftwaffe got chewed up by British radar systems, strong fighter defenses, and Göring's own strategic mistakes. Britain fought back hard, and Germany lost. The cracks in Göring's leadership only widened from there. When the Sixth Army got encircled at Stalingrad, Göring personally assured Hitler that he could supply them by air. It was impossible. The Luftwaffe failed spectacularly, and the Sixth Army was destroyed. As the war continued and Allies started dominating the skies, Göring's prestige collapsed, and he still walked around in flashy uniforms and took long lunches surrounded by looted art. But everyone, including Hitler, knew he'd become a liability. So, in an attempt to maintain his status and keep that shit person list going, behind the fancy uniforms and theatrical personality was a man deeply involved in the Nazi regime's most horrific crimes. Göring wasn't just a bureaucrat signing papers. He was an active architect of genocide. He authorized Reinhard Heydrich to begin planning what became the final solution: the Nazis' plan to murder Europe's Jews. He drove anti-Semitic economic policies, stripping Jewish people of their jobs, their businesses, their property, and ultimately their lives. He oversaw the forced labor system that worked millions of people to death. He supervised the economic exploitation of conquered territories. He used the chaos of war to steal art and wealth from Jewish families in occupied nations. the laws, the camps, the forced labor, the mass theft, and the brutality, Göring's fingerprints are everywhere.
Hey, Frank. You a piece of shit. Don, what are you talking about? You know what I'm talking about, you fucking cockroach.
But by 1945, Göring was out of favor, out of influence, and completely out of touch. While German cities were being carpet-bombed, he was still living in luxury, collecting jewels, and parading around in hand-designed outfits. Hitler eventually stripped him of his titles after interpreting Göring's attempt to assume leadership as the war collapsed as a betrayal. When the Third Reich finally fell apart, Göring didn't run. He drove directly to American forces and surrendered, expecting he could negotiate like some kind of statesman. Instead, he was arrested and sent to stay in trial. Good. At the Nuremberg trials, Göring tried to turn the courtroom into his last stage. He argued with prosecutors, gave long speeches, and tried to present himself as a sensible leader who'd just been following orders. But the evidence against him was massive, and his arrogance didn't help. He was found guilty on all counts: conspiracy, crimes against peace, war crimes, and crimes against humanity. He was sentenced to hang. But in typical Göring fashion, he wasn't about to let anyone else control his exit. The night before his execution, he bit down on a hidden cyanide capsule and killed himself, dodging the noose he had been sentenced to and finally completing his list of reasons why he's a shit person. So that's Hermann Göring, a man who went from celebrated pilot to one of the most destructive leaders of the 20th century. This story is a brutal reminder of what happens when ego, extremism, and unchecked power collide. It's a case study of how fast democracy can fall apart when the wrong people get control, and how the consequences can echo across generations. If you want more videos on some infamous individuals, the hard stuff, the uncomfortable stuff, the real stories behind the names, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and write a comment on which monster I should cover next, or, as always, if I might have missed anything. There's a lot more history worth unpacking, and a lot more we need to make sure never repeats. So until next time, stay curious, stay sharp. I'll see you in the next one.
It's history on repeat.
Hell yeah.